Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I want to talk about something really close to my heart, something that actually pushed me to where I am now. A little while ago, I left my corporate job, not because I was some big shot who could just walk away, but because I had to. In a way, I made so many stupid mistakes with my money, so many bad investment calls, that it was time for a complete reset. And I want to share that messy, complicated story with you. Not to tell you what to do, but to show you what not to do. You know, when I was in my early 20s, I was just like many of you, eager to make a lot of money and make it fast. I saw all these get-rich-quick schemes, heard about these hot tips, and thought, that is it. That is my ticket to financial freedom. I didn't know anything about real investing, about risk management, about how markets actually work. All I saw were dollar signs and the promise of a life I thought I wanted. I was chasing trends, buying whatever was popular, listening to every rumor, and honestly just gambling with my heart. Earned savings, I was always chasing the highs, trying to jump in when things were soaring, and then panicking and selling when they dipped. It was a vicious cycle of chasing profits and then cutting losses, or sometimes just letting those losses pile up until they were too big to ignore. It was short-term thinking, pure and simple. And it cost me dearly. I remember one time I put a significant chunk of my savings into this one stock. Everyone was hyping up, it went up a little, and I felt like a genius. Then almost overnight it crashed. I held on, convinced it would bounce back, that I just needed to be patient, but it kept going down and down and down. I didn't have any stop loss, no risk management plan. I just watched my money disappear, feeling sick to my stomach. That was a brutal lesson in not putting all your eggs in one basket, and definitely not letting your emotions drive your investment decisions. That wasn't the only time I fell for a few scams too. Things that promised impossible returns, things that sounded too good to be true. And guess what? They were. I learned the hard way that if someone is promising you guaranteed super high returns, run the other way. It's almost certainly a trap. I lost money, not just once, but a few times, to these slick talking individuals who prey on people's hopes and dreams. It makes you feel incredibly foolish, incredibly vulnerable. Another massive mistake I made was going all in, taking on too much risk, thinking I was invincible. I didn't understand the concept of diversification, of spreading out my investments to reduce risk. I thought if I believed in something, I should just pile all my money into it. That is a recipe for disaster, especially when you don't have a big financial cushion to fall back on. My savings, the money I had worked so hard to put away, was just evaporating before my eyes. The emotional toll of all these losses was immense. I was constantly stressed, checking my phone every 5 minutes. My mood swinging wildly with every market fluctuation. It was consuming my thoughts, affecting my sleep, even my relationships. I was irritable, anxious, and just generally unhappy. It's not just about the money you lose. It is about the peace of mind you sacrifice. After hitting rock bottom, after seeing years of my savings wiped out, I finally had to confront the brutal truth. My approach to money was completely wrong. I had been driven by greed, by impatience, by a naive belief in quick wins. I had to stop, I had to learn, so I did. I started reading everything I could get my hands on about proper financial planning, about long-term investing, about risk management. I devoured books, articles, online courses. I learned about index funds, about balanced portfolios, about the power of compound interest. It wasn't exciting, not like the thrill of chasing a hot stock, but it was real. It was sustainable. I realized that true financial security isn't about getting rich overnight. It is about consistency, about discipline, about understanding the fundamentals. It's about not putting yourself in a position where one bad investment can derail your entire financial future. It is about being smart, not just lucky. And that is why I am here. Now I want to share these hard-won lessons with you, so you don't have to go through what I did. I'm not some guru. I am just a regular guy who made a ton of mistakes and is now trying to do better, and hopefully help others do the same. Before you even think about making any big financial moves or even consider leaving a stable job, you need to ask yourself some serious questions. Do you actually want to leave your job, or are you just fed up with a bad week, a difficult boss, or a temporary slump? Believe me, I've been there, that feeling of wanting to just walk out, to burn bridges. It's powerful. But don't make a rash decision based on emotion. That is how I ended up making so many of my financial blunders, driven by fear or greed. Take a step back. Is your job truly toxic, or are you just having a tough time? If it's truly toxic, affecting your health, your peace of mind, then yes, start planning your exit. No one should stay in a situation that actively harms them. But if it's just a rough patch, consider whether leaving will actually solve anything. Often it just trades one set of problems for another, and sometimes those new problems are even bigger. When I was contemplating leaving my corporate job, I had to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't going to be an escape from all my problems. There is no magical quit your job button that fixes everything. In fact, for me, it meant inviting a whole new set of stresses. The stability of a regular paycheck, the benefits, the clear structure of a 9 to 5. Those things are comfortable even if the job itself is always. When you leave, all that comfort is gone, and you suddenly responsible for everything. It is not like those Instagram posts where everyone is on yachts at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The reality is often a lot more work, a lot more uncertainty. I am probably working harder now than I ever did before. If you are serious about making a change, about pursuing a different path, then meticulous planning is non-negotiable. This is where I finally started getting things right. It comes down to two main things: your monthly burn rate and your savings. Think of it as a math problem, a runway for your dreams. Your runway is simply how many months you can survive financially without any income. While chasing your new dream, to figure this out, take your total savings, the money you are willing to dedicate to this venture, and divide it by your monthly burn rate. Your burn rate is basically all your essential expenses each month: food, rent, transportation, utilities, everything. The absolute worst thing you can do is leave your job without enough runway. I've seen people do it, and it almost always ends in disaster. They run out of money, they start relying on credit cards, racking up debt, borrowing from friends or family. That puts you in a terrible, stressful position where you are forced to make bad decisions just to stay afloat. You don't want to be reckless, you want to be smart. So calculate your monthly expenses down to the last penny. Be brutally honest with yourself. Then look at your savings. And don't forget to factor in things like insurance, especially if you re in a country like America where health insurance costs can be astronomical once you leave a corporate plan. Those things can eat into your savings faster than you realize. After you have a clear picture of your current expenses, start thinking about how you can reduce them. This is what I did. I started planning my exit almost a year before I actually left. I set a date, a specific target for me. It was after I would be fully vested in my company's investment plan, which was a smart move, something I learned from my earlier mistakes. Once I had that date, I asked myself, how can I make my life cheaper at the time? I was living alone in the city, paying about $3,000 to $4,000 a month for rent, parking, internet, and food. That's a lot of money. And it would burn through my savings quickly. My family lives nearby, so I thought, what if I move back home? It meant sacrificing some independence, but it also meant I could eliminate my $1,500 rent, my parking costs, and split utility bills. This immediately brought my monthly cost of living down to around $2,000. I am incredibly grateful that my parents let me do this for minimal expenses. It is not an option for everyone, but the principle is the same. Find ways any way you can to reduce your fixed costs. Let's say you have $20,000 in savings that you are willing to put towards your new venture. If your monthly cost of living is now $2,000, that gives you a 10-month runway, 10 months to make things happen, to build something new. That is a precious, limited amount of time. And this is assuming no income coming in. If you have a side gig, if you've already started generating some money, that can extend your runway even further. When I left my job, I took about a 90% pay cut. That's a huge drop. But I also had two other small income streams, some stock dividends I had built up through my more sensible investments, and my YouTube channel, which had just started getting monetized. Those little streams, even if they weren't too much, helped offset some of my expenses and extend my runway. Remember, while some costs might go down, like daily commuting expenses, others might go up significantly. Health insurance is a big one for me. It was potentially an extra $500 a month. You absolutely have to do the math for your own situation. What costs will increase? What will decrease? Don't leave anything to chance. You do not want to end up in debt, using credit cards to stay afloat. Because you didn't do your homework, I didn't want to decimate my entire savings, so every step was calculated. It was a careful, deliberate decision, not a spontaneous one. Also consider any incentives your current company offers. Many companies have stock options or vested benefits that kick in after a certain number of years. If staying an extra few months or even a year means a significant bonus or fully vested benefits, it might be worth it. For me, if I had stayed just a little longer, I would have gotten a nice bonus. I weighed that against my desire for freedom and made my decision. These are all part of the calculation beyond the financial planning. You also need an emergency plan. What if things go wrong? What if your runway is as long as you thought? You need a backup plan, a contingency. You never know what life will throw at you, so always be prepared for the unexpected. Then there is the mental preparation. This is a huge one, and honestly something I underestimated. You will have so many mental battles with yourself. I remember walking down the hall at work just before I quit and thinking, am I the craziest person in the world or the stupidest or both? It's normal to second guess yourself, especially when you're remaking such a big non-traditional decision. You have to ask yourself, are you built for uncertainty? Can you handle the idea of no income or an extremely unpredictable income? If you are someone who gets stressed out easily by financial instability, if you crave routine and security, then this path might not be for you. Be honest with yourself about your own tolerance for risk and uncertainty. And there is another aspect, the human element. If you hate everyone you work with, this part 1 apply. But if you have colleagues you genuinely like, people you've built friendships with, it's a strange feeling knowing you go from seeing them every day to almost never. I've had jobs where I made some really good friends, people I suffered through tough projects with, people I grew with. Leaving that behind can be surprisingly sad, like growing apart from old friends from your younger days. It is a bittersweet feeling. Once you've decided to leave, you also need a concrete plan for what comes next. What will your new job, your new life actually look like? You don't have forever. If you only have that 10-month runway, those months will fly by faster than you can imagine. You can't quit your job and then just sit there wondering, okay, now what? That's a waste of precious time. You need to know what projects you want to work on. Do you want to start a YouTube channel, launch a business, find clients? You need a daily structure, a plan for how you are going to spend your time productively. Otherwise, that runway will shrink and you'll be forced to go back to a traditional job. Seeing your entrepreneurial venture as a failure when it comes to actually leaving, there are a few practical considerations. First, be careful who you tell before you officially notify your boss. The last thing you want is for your colleagues to know you leaving before your employer does. It changes the team dynamic, how work is distributed, even how you reviewed for future opportunities. Keep it under wraps until you ready to make it official. In most places, it's standard to give at least a 2-week notice. Unless you've been severely mistreated or your company has done something truly awful, it is the right thing to do. Your colleagues have their own lives, their own stresses, and you don't want to leave them in the lurch. Giving proper notice allows for a smooth transition for you to hand over your work, to train others, to ensure knowledge transfer. Leaving on good terms is also incredibly important. You never know when you might need to go back, or when those connections might be valuable in the future. I've left Fortune 500 companies twice, and both times it was a dramatic exit. I didn't hate those jobs. In fact, it was the opposite. I had immense respect for the people I worked with. The first time I left, my old boss even texted me a month later, offering me more opportunities. The most recent time they said they'd be happy to have me back if things didn't work out. That gave me a huge sense of security, a safety net. If I had stormed out, burned bridges, that option wouldn't have existed. Also, use the opportunity before you leave to network. Ask colleagues you admire to coffee or lunch. Build those connections. You never know who might help you in the future, who might become a valuable mentor or collaborator. Leave with dignity, honor, and respect. It always pays off after you finally quit. After that last drive home from work, I'll be honest, it's a bit anticlimactic. The world keeps spinning, still just you, but now you have more time. Take a few days to relax, you've earned it. I'm not great at relaxing myself, but it's important to decompress, to unwind, to do something healthy. But then you have to hit the ground running. Remember that ticking clock, that limited runway? If you are lazy, if you procrastinate, that time will disappear. Use that pressure to motivate you. Implement your plan, try things, adjust, tweak, keep going. And critically, start working on getting some income back, even if it's small at first. Cut back on any unnecessary expenses. You no longer planning. You are in the thick of it. Planning was crucial for me, and it significantly reduced my stress levels. I am happy I made the decision to leave. The freedom is amazing, but it is not all sunshine and rainbows. A lot of days are still just work. You are your own motivator now, and you really learn how disciplined you are when no one is telling you what to do. It's not a cure. All for unhappiness. If you were unhappy before, don't expect leaving your job to magically fix it. I feel largely the same as I did before, maybe a little more relaxed, with more time for things I enjoy, but stress still enters your life, especially when there is no safety net, no steady income covering unexpected costs. A $500 unexpected bill hits differently when you don't have a paycheck coming in. Finally, I know there are many people who can't just leave their jobs for whatever reason. Maybe they need the paycheck, the stability for their family, and that is completely understandable. But you still have options. You can look for a job with better work-life balance, one that allows you to pursue side passions. You can find a job you more passionate about, something you can tolerate or even enjoy. There are people out there who genuinely love what they do, or you can pour hours into a side hustle. There is no sugarcoating it. You have to wake up earlier, stay up later, do what it takes to build that dream on the side, just like I did with YouTube while working my 9 to 5. That allowed me to build those small income streams that ultimately made my leap possible. I hope this was useful, and I hope I am getting my point across. Don't be foolish with your money or your career plan. Plan and plan some more. If you are thinking of making a big change, quitting your job isn't the end of the road. It is the beginning of a new journey. But it is not an escape from all your problems, and it's not a decision to take lightly. If you ready to make that leap, do it wisely, stay grounded, and be prepared to work harder than ever to build the life you truly want. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.